Oh, the late 70s. What a time to be alive. Like the disbanding of the Beatles, the Iran hostage crisis, and feminism. Pretty sure that existed before the late 70s, but hey, it's the late 70s. I wasn't alive. The late 70s also birthed one of the first major home video game consoles, being the Atari 2600. With gaming being a relatively new form of media at the time, a lot of things weren't fully set in stone yet. That being things like copyright laws, quality control, proper production, which essentially meant that if you had the resources, anyone and anybody could release a game for the Atari 2600. This of course led to hundreds of terrible games being sold for the Atari 2600, eventually leading to the crash of the industry because the average consumer couldn't differ between an actual game and a huge pile of shit. To be fair, on the original Atari, neither can I. But besides low-quality games, one of the more interesting things that popped up on the Atari, or well, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, it was porn. Considering that the porn industry is one of the most profitable forms of entertainment, many companies saw the establishment of home video game consoles and said, yeah, I could get off to that. One of the most infamous cases of adult content on the Atari, I'm just gonna call it Atari porn. One of the most infamous cases of Atari porn ended up getting some significant media coverage, being a little game called Custer's Revenge. This game stars George Armstrong Custer, an American commander for the Civil and American Indian Wars. To make a long story short, in a battle against a Western Native American tribe, he was killed in battle along with every single soldier in his army. So where the hell does porn on the Atari 2600 come in here? This game has George Custer taking his revenge on a Native American woman while she's tied to a cactus, which I'm sure you can fill in the blanks here and figure out what that means. In this game, you take control of George Custer as he makes his way through the desert, dodging Native American arrows to make his way to a woman who's essentially this game's goalpost, where once reached you get a full porn scene and great 4-bit action. I'm gonna blur it, but I'm sure more than 3 people actually got off to this, which is a little concerning. Now, I don't even need to begin to explain to you how just terrible this game is. I've always been one for edgy humor, but making a game where a commander takes his revenge of defeat by essentially a woman tied to a cactus just goes way too far. And even from a wow, this is hot perspective, dude, you're playing this on the Atari. I'm gonna blur it, but it's essentially already censored for you. This game was rightfully panned for being disrespectful towards history, Native Americans, and just being gross altogether, so it was quickly taken off any store shelves it managed to weasel its way into. You'd actually be surprised how many stores sold this thing. It even came packaged in a leather case, just so you know you're buying something you probably shouldn't be buying. I get it, it's a free country, but what the f***? You would assume that this would be like a one-off case, like some developers made an offensive game on the Atari for attention and got taken off store shelves later, but no, actually, there was quite a bit of porn for the Atari. You got titles such as Bachelorette Party, where you lead a woman to a room full of men, where of course, bachelorette party activities ensue. It's kind of hard to say that the gameplay is bad, when in all honesty, it kind of blends into many other Atari 2600 games, but I mean, just look at it and tell me you would play it if it didn't include some awesome 4-bit sex in it. Emphasis on the awesome, by the way. Another relatively popular one was a game by the title of Beat 'em and Eat 'em, which by that title alone and it being an erotic game has me concerned, what market is this being sold to? In this game, you just like lead women into a room and have sex with them. It's pretty simple, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to say about it. I guess one interesting thing about this game is that it later got a double-ender cartridge, which was essentially 2 games stitched together, and it included a reskin of the same game with the genders swapped. I love diversity. Actually, a lot of these games did get gender-bent versions of them for like, I don't know, menu, but I don't know, this one just felt notable to me. The gender-bent version of this game is called Philly Flasher. I knew a guy in high school with that name. This game is actually dubbed the most sexual game on the Atari 2600, which I must say is a title they must be really proud to have, especially when its competition was games such as X-Man. Not X-Men like the superheroes, no, X-Man, a pornographic version of Pac-Man. You know, I wasn't really sold on Pac-Man until I played this. You play as a naked man and go through a maze, and as a reward for making it to the end of the maze, oh boy, eye candy. Or as I say, I'm gonna gouge my eyes out if I have to see any more Atari porn. You also have Porky's, which is like Donkey Kong, but for porn, but little did these developers know, I have been advised to not finish this line. From what I've played, this is probably the most gameplay-oriented nudie game on this list, so take that as you will. And the last porn game for the Atari 2600 was a little game called Lady in Waiting. Basically, you are a naked woman and you need to get through a river filled with demons and alligators, like in Florida, and then at the end you find a naked prince and you get it on, like in Florida. What am I doing? I guess I just don't know what to say about any of these games. The most interesting aspect about them is the fact that they were in an era where you could have porn on the same system you played Frogger on. And I just really want to know who any of these games were made for. I mean, have you looked at these games? They're just squares on a screen. What are you seeing here that's so hot? Like, do you think there's ever been an argument whether which game is better to get your groove onto more, Custer's Revenge or X-Man? And how come we all know the answer is X-Man?